I'm Stacy, 30, female. I'm a chiropractor living in a quiet suburb with my fiancé, Alex. For the past year, my life has been a whirlwind of wedding planning, balancing my practice with floral arrangements and venue tours. I thought I was building the perfect future, but it turns out the biggest pain wasn't in my patients' backs, but right in my own family, to be ready to stab me in mine. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. My parents, bless them, have always been savers. My dad, Robert, spent 40 years as an accountant, and my mom was a teacher. They weren't flashy, but they were comfortable, and they had always promised to help me with my wedding. When Alex and I got engaged, they sat us down and presented us with a check. It was a significant amount, enough to cover the majority of our dream wedding at a beautiful historic hotel downtown. "This is for you," Dad said, his eyes beaming. "We want you to have the perfect day with no financial stress." I was overwhelmed with gratitude. Alex's parents, Karen and her husband, were a different story. Karen, a retired school principal, had a way of making everything about her. They were financially well off, but they hadn't offered to contribute a dime. Instead, they offered suggestions, which were really just demands. She wanted her friends on the guest list, a specific type of champagne, and a better room at the hotel than my parents. I was determined to be the bigger person, to keep the peace for Alex's sake. The hotel was the centerpiece of the wedding. It was a grand, old building with a stunning ballroom and luxurious suites. To thank our parents and the wedding party, I decided to book a block of rooms for the wedding weekend. I used a portion of my parents' generous gift to pay for it all up front. For my parents, I booked a lovely junior suite. For Alex's parents, I booked an identical junior suite on the same floor. And for Alex and me, I reserved the bridal suite. Nothing too extravagant, but a special room for our special weekend. Everything was confirmed and paid for months in advance. I even had the email confirmations and receipts all filed away. I thought I had everything under control. The wedding weekend arrived in a flurry of excitement. My best friend and maid of honor, Jessica, helped me check in on Friday afternoon. When I got to the front desk, I gave my name and the clerk smiled warmly. "Welcome, MS Miller. We have everything ready for you, and I see you've been upgraded to our presidential suite. It's our finest room. We hope you enjoy it." I was stunned. The presidential suite. It was a massive multi-room suite on the top floor with a grand piano and a panoramic view of the city. "It cost a fortune per night. There must be a mistake," I said, laughing. "I booked the standard bridal suite." The clerk checked her computer. "No mistake. The reservation was changed last week by a Mrs. Karen Vance. She said it was a surprise for the bride and groom." My stomach did a little flip. A surprise from Karen, that was. Uncharacteristic. She wasn't exactly the generous type, but maybe I had misjudged her. Maybe this was an olive branch, a genuine wedding gift. Jessica squeezed my arm. "Wow, Stacy, that's incredible." I decided to accept it, feeling a new wave of warmth for my future mother-in-law. We went up to the suite, and it was breathtaking. Later that afternoon, I met my parents in the lobby. "You have to come see our room," I gushed. Karen upgraded us to the presidential suite. My mom looked surprised, but Dad, my ever-practical father, just raised an eyebrow. When we got to my parents' floor, I walked them to their junior suite. But when the key card didn't work, we were confused. Dad went down to the front desk, and I waited with Mom in the hallway. He came back a few minutes later, his face grim. "They've moved us," he said, his voice tight, "to a standard room on the second floor, overlooking the parking lot," and my heart sank. "What? Why?" The clerk said my suite was given to Mr. and Mrs. Vance. He said, looking me straight in the eye. Apparently, there was a last-minute change. The warmth I had felt for Karen instantly evaporated, replaced by a cold, creeping dread. Something was very, very wrong. That night, I couldn't sleep. The stunning view from the presidential suite felt tainted. Why would Karen move my parents, the ones who had paid for everything, to a tiny room in the back of the hotel? I tried to talk to Alex about it, but he just shrugged. "Mom probably just got confused, Stace. You know how she is. She likes to be in charge. It's not a big deal. We can sort it out tomorrow." But it felt like a very big deal. It felt deliberate. The next morning, while everyone else was at a pre-wedding brunch, I made an excuse about needing to finalize details with the hotel coordinator and went down to the front desk. I found the same clerk from the day before. I smiled sweetly and explained that there had been some confusion with my parents' room, and I wanted to see the final. itemized bill for the entire block of rooms, just to make sure everything was in order before the final checkout on Sunday. The clerk was hesitant at first, saying the final bill wouldn't be ready until checkout, but I persisted, explaining it was a gift from my parents and I wanted to ensure there were no surprise charges for them. Eventually, she agreed and printed out a preliminary folio for the entire block booking under my name. I took the papers to a quiet corner of the lobby and started to read. My hands began to shake as I scanned the pages. It was all there, in black and white. My original booking, 2 junior suites, one for the Hayes, one for the Vances. Then, a note dated last Tuesday, a call from Karen Vance. She had canceled my reservation for the bridal suite. She had canceled my parents' junior suite. She had then used the credit from those 2 canceled rooms, the money my parents had paid, and put it towards the presidential suite. She'd paid the remaining difference on her own credit card, a fraction of the total cost. But it got worse. The folio also showed all the room service charges. The presidential suite had an astronomical bill, vintage champagne, steak dinners, in-room couples massages, expensive pay-per-view movies. They had been living it up, all on my dime. Meanwhile, the charges for my parents' tiny room were non-existent. They hadn't even ordered a coffee. The final insult was a charge on Karen's account for a premium champagne package to be delivered to her room, the presidential suite, during the wedding reception. She was planning to host her own private party while I was at my own wedding. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't a mistake or a confusion. This was a calculated move. Karen had waited until the last minute to make the changes, knowing I'd be too busy to notice. She had effectively stolen the money my parents had gifted us, downgraded them without a word, and then taken the most luxurious suite for herself, leaving me and Alex to technically stay in a room she had arranged. She had created a situation where she was the grand host in the best suite, while my parents, the actual benefactors, were shoved into a closet-sized room. I felt a surge of rage so intense it made me dizzy. This was a power play, a deliberate act of disrespect to me and my family. She was showing me who was in charge. I thought of Alex's passive response, his "you know how she is." He was enabling her. He had to have known. There was no way he didn't know his parents were staying in the presidential suite. He was in on it, or at the very least, he was complicit in his silence. I walked back to the suite, the papers clutched in my hand. Alex was there, getting his suit ready. I confronted him, my voice trembling with fury. "Did you know your mother moved my parents to a different room?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. I heard something about it. Mom said she handled it. Handled it. I threw the papers onto the bed. "She stole from my parents, Alex. She used the money they gave us to pay for her own luxury vacation this weekend. She downgraded them and took the best suite for herself. And you knew. You stood by and let her disrespect my family like this." He finally looked at me, and his expression wasn't apologetic. It was annoyed. "Stacy, you're overreacting. It's just a hotel room. Don't cause a scene. It's our wedding day." A scene. I repeated, my voice dangerously low. "Oh, you have no idea what kind of a scene I'm about to cause." In that moment, looking at the man I was supposed to marry in a few hours, I didn't see my partner. I saw a stranger, a coward who would let his mother walk all over me and my family. The wedding wasn't just in trouble, it was over. I just had to figure out how to dismantle it in the most public way possible. My mind went into overdrive. I excused myself, telling Alex I needed some air. I found my maid of honor, Jessica, and pulled her into an empty conference room. I quickly explained everything, showing her the hotel bill. Her jaw dropped. "That woman is a monster," she breathed. "What are you going to do? I'm not marrying him." I said, a strange sense of calm washing over me, "But I'm not going to just cancel everything. My parents paid for this party, so we're going to have a party, just not a wedding." Together, we formulated a plan. The first step was to discreetly inform my vendors. I called the photographer and the videographer, people I'd built a good rapport with. I told them there was a change of plans, the wedding was off, but I was still hosting the reception, and I wanted them to capture every moment, especially the speeches. I called the DJ and gave him a new playlist, removing all the slow, romantic songs. Next, I went to see my dad. I found him in his tiny hotel room reading a newspaper. I showed him the folio. He read it slowly, his expression hardening. He wasn't a man of many words, but I saw a flicker of steel in his eyes. He looked at me and nodded once. "I'll handle the toast," he said. That was all I needed to hear. The final piece was the hotel. I went to the hotel manager, a kind woman named Sarah. I explained the situation calmly and rationally. I showed her the proof of Karen's deception. I told her I was canceling the wedding but still holding the reception, and I had a special request. I wanted all the charges from the presidential suite, every bottle of champagne, every massage, every movie transferred to a separate bill. And I wanted that bill delivered to the head table, right in the middle of my father's speech. Sarah, seeing the blatant fraud, was more than happy to oblige. She even arranged for a security guard to be discreetly posted near the ballroom, just in case. The stage was set. I walked down the aisle alone in my beautiful wedding dress. The guests murmured in confusion when they saw me approach the altar where the officiant should have been. I took the microphone. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice clear and steady. "I'm afraid there won't be a wedding today. It turns out the partnership I thought I was entering was not an honest one. But please, enjoy the food and drinks my parents so generously paid for. We are here to celebrate honesty, integrity, and standing up for your family." There was a collective gasp from the room. I looked at Alex and Karen. Alex was pale, his mouth hanging open. Karen's face was a mask of thunderous rage. We went through the dinner, the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife. Alex's family and friends huddled together, whispering furiously. My family and friends were a wall of silent support around me. Finally, it was time for the toasts. My father stood up, glass in hand. He walked to the microphone, looking calm and composed. "Good evening, everyone," he began. Usually, the father of the bride gives a toast to welcome a new son into the family, but I can't do that today, because a man who stands by and watches his mother disrespect and steal from his future in-laws is no son of mine. More gasps. Karen started to rise from her seat, but my dad held up a hand. "I'm not finished. My wife and I gave Stacy and Alex a substantial gift to pay for this wedding. We were happy to do it. We booked 2 lovely junior suites, one for us, one for the Vances, so we could all be comfortable. However, Karen Vance felt that wasn't good enough. She decided to cancel our room, downgrade us to a room by the loading docks, and use our money to pay for her and her husband to stay in the presidential suite. Right on cue, a hotel staff member walked crisply to the head table and placed a leather-bound bill folder directly in front of Karen. "That," my father said, pointing at the folder, "is the bill for all the luxuries you've been enjoying this weekend on our dime. The massages, the vintage champagne, the room service. Since you were so keen on arranging the accommodations, I'm sure you'll be just as keen to handle the bill. We will be expecting a full reimbursement for the money you stole. As for my daughter, I have never been more proud of her. She is strong, she is honest, and she deserves a man who values her and her family. This is not a loss, this is a lucky escape." He raised his glass. "To my daughter, Stacy." The room was dead silent for a moment, and then all of my family and friends erupted in applause, rising to their feet. Karen snatched the bill, her face purple with rage. Alex just sat there, utterly defeated and silent. Karen and her husband stormed out of the reception, followed by a sheepish-looking Alex. Most of their guests trailed out after them. Once they were gone, the entire atmosphere of the room lifted. The DJ switched to upbeat party music. My friends and family surrounded me, hugging me, telling me how brave I was. We ate, we drank, and we celebrated my freedom. It wasn't the party I had planned, but it was 1,000 times better. It was a celebration of truth. The next morning, I checked out of the hotel. The manager informed me that Karen had refused to pay the bill, but the hotel had her credit card on file from the upgrade, and had charged the full amount to her. They had also fully refunded my father for the rooms. The aftermath was messy. Alex tried calling me, sending texts full of pathetic excuses. I blocked his number. His family tried to paint me as the villain on social media, but my friends and family were quick to shut them down with the truth. The story of the toast became something of a local legend. I sold the wedding dress and used the money, along with the refunded portion from the wedding, to book a month-long trip to Italy for myself and my parents. It was a trip of healing, of laughter, and of incredible food. It was there, overlooking the Amalfi Coast, that I realized my father's toast wasn't just about revenge, it was a lesson. He showed me what it means to have a family that will always have your back, that will stand up for you, no matter what. I had lost a fiancé, but I had gained a deeper understanding of the love and strength of the family I already had. I was starting over, not with a broken heart, but with a renewed sense of self-worth, and that was a foundation no one could ever take from me.